Hi, this is Danielle Daws for UnityTV. I have a masking tutorial for you today, and I'll be using the Webster's Pages itty bitty stamp called Dressing Room. But first I'm going to show you how to make the mask. I have some Mask It film in front of me there, and the little black marks that you see on that are just where my card front lines up, so that I can make sure that my layout, where my die cuts are going to be, will be exactly where I want them to be on the card. So I'm using a Spellbinders Butterfly Die, and I'm going to cut this 4 times. I'm using a metal sheet there in my sandwich in my Big Shot, and that is just to help get a nice clean sharp edge, especially when you have thinner materials, which this is. So I'll put that through a couple more times. A couple of hints that I've found with using this: I use just some Scotch tape to keep my die in place as it's running through the Big Shot, and that seems to work really well. The other thing is the die cut that you actually get out, the butterfly that comes out, you can use that for masking later for anything else that you want. So that's it, that's the mask done. Nice and easy. One thing that you do notice with using these masks is that sometimes edges can peel up, like the little section in between the wings. So what I'm making here is another mask to go over the top, but the middle part is not sticky because I've put another section of Mask It film there. And that's just so that I still have that nice smooth surface to work from, but it's not going to pull up part of the mask later on. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Putting the mask down is probably the trickiest part, and it's well worth taking some extra time. You want to make sure that it's down properly and there's no little pieces coming up so that you can get ink underneath elsewhere. And so here you see the other mask that I made that has a section underneath it that's non-adhesive. So here, as I lift it up, you can see that it comes up easily and doesn't pull up the rest of the mask. So now I'm going to be using distress inks to apply colour to the mask, and I wanted to show you the way that I store my blending foams. I have several of the blending tools, but not enough for all the colours. So I made up this chart, coloured each square, laminated it, and then applied some Velcro so that I can stick the foams on there. It works really well for me. Okay, so I'm going to speed all this section up quite a bit, but just to talk you through it with this first butterfly, you apply the lightest colour first. In this case it's scattered straw, and you want to work from the outside in. It really does make a difference. Now with Wild Honey, and I'm going to be using just the very side of the blending foam. I'll lift up the card here so that you can see what I mean. I just want to use the side and just quite lightly. It's always really useful to have an extra piece of cardstock around so that you can try it before you get on there. So with the Wild Honey, and that's the other thing, is to make sure that you apply a little bit of ink more frequently rather than a lot of ink at once, because it's much easier to blend it in that way than it is to try and get rid of excess ink. So you can see the Wild Honey going in there and gives a nice contrast to the scattered straw. And I'll be putting that through the middle of the butterfly, and you'll also see me go round from the bottom to blend some ink up from underneath the wings as well. And basically it's just seeing how you go, seeing how it looks, and then at the end, one of the best things that I've found to do is to go back with the lighter coloured ink and re-blend all the way through, and it just helps the inks to blend together so beautifully, which they do anyway. So I'm nearly finished there with the Wild Honey, and now I'll go back with scattered straw and just blend it again from the outside in. The distress inks are such a beautiful intensity. They really do come up beautifully, and they look gorgeous with the stamp that I'm going to be using later on. So now I'm just showing you how I reposition that mask that I made, and I'll put another one on top of the other butterfly, and that's because I really do tend to take the blending tool all the way around. As you can see, it goes everywhere, and I don't want that to come through on any of the other butterflies. This second butterfly, I'm starting with Wild Honey, and then I'm going in with Rusty Hinge just into the middle, because what I want is a nice graduation of colour going from the yellows down to reds. And you can see there it does this really beautiful contrast that just accentuates the colours. They're just so pretty together. So again, going in there with Rusty Hinge, and then I'll go back with Wild Honey in a moment, and same as I did for the top butterfly, I'll just blend all of that ink together so that it's nice and smooth. Next butterfly, starting off with Barn Door, which is very vibrant red, And the contrasting colour, or sorry, the accentuating colour that I'll be using is Fired Brick. Now Fired Brick is a much deeper tone, so it tends to make the whole butterfly a deeper colour, which is exactly what I wanted, but it's something to keep in mind when you are blending the inks. If you want the vibrancy of the barn door, Fired Brick over the top of it, you'd want to be using it very sparingly. And coming back in here with barn door to bring it all together. And now for the final butterfly, starting off with Fired Brick. You can see that beautiful intensity coming straight up, and then I'm going to be accentuating that with some aged mahogany. Now I love all of these colours together. They are just so pretty and makes such a lovely contrast coming down from the top down, going from yellow down to the reds. I'm just really pleased with how these colours come up, and distress inks are so easy to work with. So now I'm applying the stamp, which is Dressing Room by Webster's Pages. And this is a gorgeous background stamp, but I'm using some white pigment ink to go over the top of the butterfly. So I still have the mask in place, but I'm using post-it notes to cover the butterfly. The reason I'm using post-it notes is because I want to be able to just tear these off and throw them away. And I do need to cover the butterfly that I've just done. But once I take this bit off, you'll see there's some colour underneath from the butterfly before, so you want to keep using a new post-it note for the lower butterfly every time. And just using nice firm pressure to get that white pigment ink just sitting really nicely on top of the butterflies. And going on to the final one now. And my card is almost done. Now one tip that I can give you from lifting up this masking foam is this masking film, I always end up having inky fingers, so an extra post-it note on hand is great to be able to keep your card in place so that you don't get smudges. So that's it, there's my card finished. And cleaning up the Mask It film is as easy as using some baby wipes and paper towel. Thanks so much for watching.